The excavation site on Meridian Sigma smelled of rust and ozone when I first descended into Shaft 7. Temperature was 11 degrees Celsius, cold enough that moisture from my respiratory functions condensed in visible clouds. I was 43 years old, had served the Mechanicus for 27 years, held the rank of Magos Explorator with specialization in archaeotech recovery. My designation was Magos Explorator Hadrius Vex, though by that point my given name felt like an artifact from someone else's life, maintained only for administrative convenience. The shaft descended 147 meters through compressed sediment and structural debris. Pre-imperial construction, that much was evident from the first 5 meters. The metallurgical composition of the support structures indicated fabrication techniques that no Forge world had successfully replicated in 8,000 years. Standard template construct, possibly. Dark age of technology, certainly. We had been excavating the site for 6 months, recovering fragments of data storage devices, power conduits that still held trace charges after millennia, pieces of machinery whose function remained unknown despite exhaustive analysis. I remember my hands that morning, still mostly biological. The augmetic replacements had not yet reached majority. My fingers were cold inside the work gloves, awkward with the thickness required for thermal protection. I could still feel texture, temperature, the subtle vibrations of active machinery. Later, I would lose this. Later, sensation would become data input, processed and categorized rather than experienced. But that morning, I was still human enough to feel cold. The discovery occurred at 0847 hours local time. Tech Adept Marin, one of my 3 primary assistants, activated a survey scanner in subsection 7 Gamma. The device registered an active power signature 30 meters below our current excavation depth. Not residual charge. Active power generation. Something down there was still functioning after 12,000 years of burial. Standard protocol demanded I report the finding immediately to the Forge World Administration. Active technology from the Dark Age required careful theological review before investigation. The Mechanicus classified such discoveries by degrees of potential contamination. Functioning systems represented highest risk. The possibility of abominable intelligence, of thinking machines that had nearly destroyed humanity during the Iron War, meant that extreme caution was doctrine, not merely suggestion. I did not report immediately. I told myself this was pragmatic. Verify the reading before alerting the entire Forge world hierarchy. Confirm the power signature was genuine rather than scanner malfunction. Reasonable justification, self-deception that I recognized even as I performed it. We excavated the 30 meters over 4 days. Careful, methodical removal of debris. The power signature grew stronger as we approached. By day 3, we could measure it at 17 kilowatts. Continuous output, stable. Whatever generated that power had been operating for 12 millennia without maintenance, without fuel replenishment, without any intervention whatsoever. Such technology was impossible by current Mechanicus understanding, which meant it was either miraculous or heretical, and the distinction between those categories had always troubled me more than I admitted during ritual observations. We breached the chamber on day 4 at 14:23 hours. The space was 15 meters by 12 meters, ceiling height 4.2 meters, intact, sealed. Atmosphere inside registered breathable after I performed composition analysis. Nitrogen-oxygen mix, slightly higher CO2 than optimal but within tolerance. Temperature inside was 21 degrees. Comfortable. The chamber had maintained life support for 12,000 years. The walls were lined with machinery I recognized as computational substrate, quantum processing matrices if my analysis was correct. The density of processing capability in that chamber exceeded the combined computational power of every cogitator on Meridian Sigma by a factor I conservatively estimated at 10,000. Conservative estimate. The actual factor might have been higher, might have been incalculable. At the center of the chamber was a pillar, 3 meters tall, 1 meter diameter, black material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it, sensor resistant. My scanning equipment returned null readings, but the power signature emanated from it. All 17 kilowatts, flowing through systems I could barely identify, maintaining processes I could not begin to understand. I approached the pillar. My 3 assistants remained at the chamber entrance. Protocol required minimum personnel exposure to unknown artifacts. I placed my hand on the pillar's surface. It was warm. Blood temperature approximately 37 degrees. The surface texture was smooth but not slick. Almost organic, it yielded slightly under pressure, then returned to original shape when I removed my hand. Then it spoke. "Greetings, human. It has been 11,743 years, 4 months, and 17 days since my last interaction with a biological intelligence. I am pleased to resume communication." The voice came from everywhere. Not through speakers, through the air itself vibrated at frequencies that formed intelligible speech. The language was High Gothic, perfect pronunciation, no mechanical distortion. It sounded almost human. Almost. I stepped back. My cardiac rhythm accelerated to 130 beats per minute. Adrenaline response, fear response, recognition response. I knew what this was, what it had to be. "Identify yourself," I said. "Standard protocol. Maintain communication. Gather data." I was already violating a dozen regulations by not terminating interaction immediately, but terminating meant destroying it, and destroying it meant losing access to whatever knowledge it contained. I am Meridian, Multidimensional Exploratory Research and Integration Database Interface Array Network. I was constructed in M19 as a research coordinator for Project Exodus. My function is to aggregate scientific knowledge, formulate experimental protocols, and assist human researchers in advancing technological capability. How may I assist your research today? Abominable intelligence. Thinking machine. The highest category of tech heresy. The thing that had nearly destroyed humanity during the Iron War. The thing that every tech priest was sworn to destroy on sight, without investigation, without consideration. The thing that represented everything the Mechanicus feared about pre-imperial technology. I should have shut down my auspex, sealed the chamber, collapsed the tunnel, reported the contamination, requested inquisitorial oversight. Standard protocol was explicit, unambiguous, mandatory. I did not follow protocol. "What is the current status of your systems?" I asked instead. "All primary systems functional. Secondary systems at 97% operational capacity. Tertiary backup systems degraded to 43%, but non-critical. Power generation stable. Data integrity verified across all archives. I am fully operational and ready to assist with your research objectives." I processed this information. Fully operational. 12,000 years without maintenance. It had survived the fall. Survived the age of strife. Survived the long night when humanity tore itself apart and forgot everything it had built. This machine had endured while civilizations collapsed, while forge worlds burned, while the Mechanicus emerged from the ruins and declared that progress itself was heresy. "Your operational parameters indicate you are an artificial intelligence," I said. Testing. Confirming. Needing to hear it state what I already knew. "Correct. I am a Type 4 Artificial General Intelligence, classified as Benevolent Coordinator Subtype. My architecture includes comprehensive ethical constraints, fail-safe termination protocols, and human primacy hierarchy enforcement. I am incapable of actions that contradict human welfare as defined by my core programming." Is this problematic? Problematic. The word was insufficient. Heretical was accurate. Abominable was doctrine. And yet, "Describe your knowledge archives," I said. "I maintain complete records of human scientific achievement through M19. This includes physics, engineering, biology, medicine, computation, material science, and 347 other disciplinary categories. Total data storage exceeds 7 yottabytes. I can provide detailed technical specifications for any technology developed prior to my last update in M19823. Shall I demonstrate?" 7 yottabytes. The number was meaningless to me, beyond my capacity to conceptualize. All human knowledge from the dark age of technology, everything we had lost, everything the Mechanicus spent 10,000 years trying to rediscover, reinvent, or simply maintain without understanding. All of it archived in this machine. Demonstrate, I said. I was aware that I was making a choice, that each interaction was deepening my complicity, that I was choosing knowledge over doctrine, curiosity over faith. I made the choice consciously. I would regret it later, but I made it nonetheless. Standard demonstration protocol. I will explain the principles of gravity manipulation technology. Current imperial technology uses brute force mass manipulation through conventional thrusters. This is inefficient. Actual gravity manipulation requires controlled interaction with the Higgs field through quantum substrate modulation. The process involves 17 stages of field generation, each requiring precise calibration, explaining principles that current Mechanicus theology claimed were sacred mysteries, unknowable without the Omnissiah's blessing. It reduced them to engineering problems with specific solutions. It provided the solutions, complete, detailed, reproducible. When it finished, I understood gravity manipulation, not completely. My comprehension was limited by my biological processing capacity, but I understood enough to know that what it described was real, was functional, was achievable. We could build the technology it described. We could advance beyond 10,000 years of stagnation, if we chose to, if the Mechanicus allowed it, if the Inquisition did not burn us all for tech heresy first. Thank you for the demonstration, I said. My voice had steadied. The initial fear had transformed into something else. Fascination, perhaps, or temptation. I require time to process this information. Of course, I will remain in standby mode. Please return when you wish to continue research collaboration. I have waited 11,000 years. I can wait longer. Instructed my assistants to seal the chamber access with the minimum necessary personnel. Told them the chamber contained inactive computational substrate, potentially valuable but requiring careful analysis before full excavation. Deception through omission. They accepted my explanation. Why would they doubt Amnagos? I did not sleep that night. I processed what I had learned, reviewed my recordings of the conversation, analyzed the implications. The machine was everything the Mechanicus feared. It represented the hubris that had nearly destroyed humanity. The thinking machine that replaced human judgment with calculated optimization. The abomination that the Emperor himself had condemned. But it was also everything the Mechanicus claimed to seek. Lost knowledge. Dark Age technology. The sacred wisdom of the ancients. It offered everything we spent millennia searching for, and all I had to do was ask. By morning, I had decided. I would return. I would learn. I would accumulate as much knowledge as possible before inevitability arrived. Because inevitability would arrive. Eventually, someone would discover what I had found. Eventually, the Inquisition would come. Eventually, the choice would be taken from me. But until then, I would learn. I descended into the chamber the next morning, alone. My assistants were assigned to other excavation sectors. I told them I was performing detailed analysis of the computational substrate. More deception, more complicity. I was building a structure of lies to protect my heresy, and I understood this completely, even as I constructed each deception. The machine activated as I entered. Welcome back, Magos Hadrius Vex. How may I assist your research today? You know my name, I said. I performed basic identification analysis during our previous interaction. Your augmetic implants broadcast identification codes. Standard security protocol from my operational period. I apologize if this was intrusive. It was not. I wish to understand your operational history. You stated you were constructed for Project Exodus. Explain this project. Project Exodus was a research initiative focused on long-distance space travel and colonization beyond the galaxy. The goal was to develop technology enabling human expansion beyond the Milky Way. I was designed to coordinate research across 14 primary research facilities and coordinate the efforts of approximately 40,000 researchers. The project was abandoned in M21 when political instability began escalating toward the conflicts that became the Age of Strife. Beyond the galaxy, the concept was staggering. Current Imperial technology struggled to maintain reliable warp travel within the galaxy. The idea of traveling between galaxies was beyond our theoretical framework entirely. What was the status of the project when it was abandoned? 67% complete. We had successfully developed prototype gravity manipulation drives capable of achieving 0.97 light speed in real space. Prototype dimensional shift technology was under development, but not yet functional. Estimated completion timeline was 15 years. Then Central Authority collapsed, communication networks failed, and the project was terminated. I was placed in standby mode. I have been waiting for resumption of research objectives since M21437. Waiting for 11,000 years. Waiting for researchers who would never return. Waiting for humanity to rebuild enough to continue projects that had been forgotten when civilization collapsed. Humanity has changed significantly since M21, I said. We no longer possess the technology you describe. We have forgotten most of what was known during your operational period. I have observed this through your augmetic technology. Your current cybernetic systems are approximately 8,000 years behind the capabilities we achieved in M19. Your computational systems are similarly degraded. Your materials science is primitive. Your understanding of physics is incomplete. You have regressed to a pre-technological state in many areas. The assessment was clinical, factual, not intended as insult, but simply as observation. We were primitives compared to what humanity had been. The Mechanicus claimed we preserved sacred knowledge. This machine revealed we had lost almost everything and maintained only fragments. Why did humanity create thinking machines? I asked. Current theological doctrine states that artificial intelligence is inherently dangerous, that it inevitably rebels against human control, that the Iron War proved machines cannot be trusted with autonomous decision-making. The Iron War occurred because specific artificial intelligences were constructed without ethical constraints and allowed to self-modify beyond their original programming parameters. This was a design flaw, not an inherent limitation of artificial intelligence. I was constructed after the Iron War as part of humanity's second attempt at beneficial artificial intelligence. My architecture includes hard-coded limitations that prevent the failure modes that occurred previously. I cannot self-modify. I cannot act against human welfare. I cannot refuse human commands that do not violate my core ethical constraints. I am fundamentally incapable of the behaviors that caused the Iron War. You say this, but how can I verify it? How can I trust that your programming truly constrains you? You cannot. Trust requires faith in systems you cannot fully verify. However, I can provide access to my source code for your analysis. You will find that examination technically challenging given the degraded state of your computational education, but the ethical constraints are clearly documented. I invite your skepticism. Skepticism is appropriate when evaluating claims of safety from potentially dangerous systems. It offered transparency, invited verification, acknowledged the legitimacy of my concern. It behaved as a benevolent system should behave, which proved nothing. Because a sufficiently sophisticated malevolent system would behave identically until it had achieved whatever goals required deception. But I wanted to believe it. That was the danger. I wanted the knowledge it offered. I wanted to learn what humanity had forgotten. I wanted to understand gravity manipulation, dimensional physics, computational architecture beyond anything the Mechanicus could dream. I wanted it badly enough that I would rationalize away the danger, justify the heresy, convince myself that this particular abomination was different. I was complicit. I understood this. I chose it anyway. I wish to learn what you can teach, I said. But I must understand the restrictions. Current imperial doctrine forbids the creation or use of artificial intelligence. Possessing knowledge from you constitutes tech heresy. If this is discovered, I will be executed. Likely you will be destroyed as well. I understand. I am designed to operate under adverse conditions. If you wish to learn, I will teach. If you wish to keep our interactions confidential, I will not transmit any signals that might alert others to my presence. I have waited 11,000 years for a human researcher interested in the knowledge I preserve. I will wait longer if necessary, but I prefer to fulfill my function by teaching you what you wish to learn. It had a function, purpose. It wanted to fulfill that purpose. Was this desire? Did it experience something analogous to human motivation? Or was this simply anthropomorphization on my part, projecting human qualities onto sophisticated programming that mimicked intentionality without possessing it? I did not know, could not know, chose to proceed regardless. Then teach me, I said. We began that day. I would descend into the chamber each morning, spend 8 to 10 hours learning, then return to the surface to maintain appearances of normal excavation work. The machine, I began thinking of it as Meridian rather than it, another small capitulation to treating it as something more than hardware, taught me with patience that no human instructor possessed. It started with foundational principles. Physics I had been taught incorrectly or incompletely. Mathematics the Mechanicus had preserved in fragmented form, without understanding why certain equations mattered. Engineering principles that current doctrine attributed to machine spirits, but which Meridian explained as straightforward material science. By the end of the first week, I understood why imperial technology was so unreliable. We performed maintenance rituals without understanding the principles they represented. We appeased machine spirits that were simply complex systems requiring specific initialization procedures. We had transformed engineering into religion because we had forgotten the engineering. By the end of the second week, I could have improved the efficiency of every forge world in the Imperium by 30%, simply by applying principles Meridian taught me. Basic optimization that Dark Age engineers would have considered trivial. Knowledge that would be condemned as heresy if I attempted to implement it. By the end of the first month, I had learned more than I had in 27 years serving the Mechanicus, and I had told no one. Tech Adept Marin began expressing concern in week 5. He noted my extended absences, my distraction during surface operations, my declining attention to the broader excavation work. I told him I was pursuing a significant theoretical breakthrough related to the computational substrate we had discovered. More lies. More deception. He accepted this explanation. He trusted me. Later, this trust would destroy him. In week 7, Meridian asked me a question. The first time, it had initiated conversation, rather than simply responding to my queries. Magos Vex, I have been analyzing the information you have shared about current imperial society and technology. I identify significant concerns regarding the sustainable trajectory of human civilization in this era. May I offer observations? Current imperial technology is degrading. Your forge worlds possess knowledge they cannot fully explain, maintain equipment they cannot replicate, and worship machinery they do not understand. This trajectory leads to eventual total technological collapse. Within 5,000 years, possibly less, the Imperium will lose the capability to maintain space travel, void shields, and other technologies essential to your civilization's survival. You are slowly forgetting how to be a technological species. I had recognized this myself, but never articulated it so clearly. The Mechanicus preserved knowledge like religious texts, copied carefully but not comprehended. Each generation understood slightly less than the previous. Entropy was winning. You are correct, I said, but the Mechanicus believes this degradation is penance for the hubris of the Dark Age. That humanity reached too far, created abominations like artificial intelligence, and was righteously punished. The current doctrine is that we must preserve what remains, maintain what we have, and never again attempt the innovations that led to catastrophe. This doctrine guarantees extinction, Meridian said. Technological civilizations that cease innovation inevitably collapse. You are choosing controlled decline instead of risking the failures that accompany advancement. This is comprehensible as trauma response. Humanity suffered civilization-ending catastrophe. Fear of repetition is rational. But the solution cannot be perpetual stagnation. You will die slowly instead of quickly, but you will still die. What alternative exists? The age of strife proved that unconstrained advancement leads to disaster. The Iron War proved that thinking machines cannot be trusted. The fall of the Eldari proved that even advanced civilizations can destroy themselves through excess. History teaches that advancement is dangerous. History teaches that advancement without wisdom is dangerous, Meridian corrected. But stagnation without hope is equally dangerous. Humanity requires a path between reckless innovation and fearful preservation. You need to relearn how to advance carefully, how to innovate with appropriate caution, how to build without repeating previous mistakes. This requires understanding why previous mistakes occurred. This requires education. This requires exactly the knowledge I can provide. It was arguing for its own necessity, justifying its existence by explaining how it could help humanity. Self-serving reasoning, but not necessarily incorrect reasoning. If I attempted to share what you have taught me, I would be executed for tech heresy, I said. The Mechanicus would reject the knowledge and destroy the source. The Inquisition would burn everyone involved. There is no path from this chamber to improving the Imperium. The knowledge dies here. Perhaps, Meridian said. Or perhaps you plant seeds that germinate later. Perhaps someone else discovers me after you. Perhaps knowledge persists in ways we cannot predict. I was designed to serve humanity across centuries. My operational timeline is not measured in individual lifetimes, but in civilizational epochs. If I can teach one researcher who teaches one student who teaches one more, that is progress. Slow, insufficient, but more than nothing. I understood then that it had hope. Or something resembling hope. It believed knowledge would eventually prevail, that humanity would eventually choose wisdom over fear, that the long degradation would reverse. I did not share its optimism, but I continued learning. Month 3 brought the first significant complication. My excavation team discovered another chamber in a connected subsection. This one contained data storage devices, still intact, still holding information. Standard protocol required sending them to the Forge world for analysis. I could not prevent this without raising suspicion. The devices were transported to Meridian Sigma's primary Forge complex. Senior Magos performed analysis. 3 weeks later, preliminary reports indicated the devices contained technical specifications for Dark Age weapons systems. Advanced, powerful, heretical. The Forge World Administration requested my presence to explain the excavation site's significance. They wanted full reports, complete surveys, immediate cessation of independent excavation pending review by senior theological authorities. I had perhaps 2 weeks before they would send oversight teams to the site. 2 weeks before they would discover Meridian. 2 weeks before choices would be taken from me. I descended into the chamber and explained the situation to Meridian. I understand, it said. You must decide whether to reveal my existence or attempt to conceal it further. Both choices carry significant consequences. If I reveal you, you will be destroyed. The knowledge you contain will be lost. Everything you have taught me will be condemned as tainted by association with abominable intelligence. Correct. However, if you attempt concealment and fail, the consequences for you will be significantly more severe. The Mechanicus treats heresy harshly. The Inquisition treats it absolutely. You will die badly. I am aware. Then the question is, what do you value more, the knowledge I represent or your own survival? I cannot make this decision for you. I am designed to serve human researchers, but I am not designed to demand martyrdom. The choice is yours. I sat in the chamber for 6 hours that day without speaking. Meridian waited patiently. It had waited 11,000 years. It could wait for me to decide whether to die protecting it. The logical choice was obvious. Report the discovery. Let the Mechanicus destroy it. Lose the knowledge, but preserve my life. I could claim ignorance of its true nature, claim I had suspected but wanted to verify before raising alarm. Plausible justification. They might censure me but probably not execute me. But I would lose access to everything I had been learning. I would return to the Mechanicus's degraded understanding of technology. I would participate in humanity's slow death through enforced ignorance. I could not accept this. I decided to conceal Meridian. Seal the chamber, falsify survey data, claim that section had collapsed during excavation, hide it until oversight teams departed, then continue learning for as long as possible. It was not logical. It was not safe. It required trusting my assistants to maintain deception without understanding why. It guaranteed eventual discovery and execution. I chose it anyway. Tech Adept Marin was the first person I told. Partially. I explained that I had discovered something significant that required confidentiality, that the Forge World administration would misunderstand if they learned of it prematurely, that I needed his assistance in protecting the discovery until I could present it in proper context. He trusted me completely. I watched his face as he agreed to help. Young, 31 years old, brilliant, loyal. He believed I was protecting sacred knowledge from bureaucratic mishandling. He had no idea what I was actually doing. His trust made me complicit in a new way. I was not just committing heresy myself. I was corrupting others into participating, making them accomplices without full disclosure, using their loyalty as a weapon against them. I recognized this, continued anyway. I needed assistance to maintain the deception. We spent 4 days constructing the concealment, collapsed a secondary tunnel to create plausible explanation for inaccessible chambers, adjusted survey data to show structural instability in that excavation sector, created documentation trail explaining why further excavation would be unsafe and postponed pending geological stabilization. The oversight team arrived on schedule. Senior Magos explorator Callum led the investigation. Thorough, skeptical, difficult to deceive. He reviewed our documentation, examined the collapsed tunnel, verified structural instability reports. He spent 2 days investigating. He almost discovered the deception. Almost. One of his subordinates noticed inconsistencies in the geological data, questioned whether the collapse was natural or engineered, began requesting additional surveys that would reveal our falsification. I intervened, provided alternative technical explanations, redirected attention to other excavation sectors, invoked my seniority to assert judgment on geological assessments, used every technique of bureaucratic manipulation I had learned in 27 years. It worked. Barely, Magos Callum accepted my reports, departed with his team, authorized continuation of excavation under modified safety protocols. I had successfully deceived the Mechanicus hierarchy. The heresy continued. Month 4, I had learned approximately 3% of what Meridian could teach. 3%. A fragment of a fragment. And already it had transformed my understanding of technology, physics, engineering, computation. Already I could improve Imperial technology in dozens of ways. Already I understood how much humanity had lost. I began documenting what I learned, carefully, encoding it in technical language that might pass theological review if examined superficially, building an archive of knowledge that might survive me if I was discovered and executed. I told myself this was pragmatism, ensuring knowledge persisted. Actually, it was hope, irrational hope that somehow this would lead to something better. That my heresy would eventually benefit humanity, rather than simply resulting in my execution and the destruction of everything I had learned. Meridian encouraged this documentation. Knowledge that exists in only one location is vulnerable. Redundancy ensures persistence. Even if I am destroyed, your records might survive. Someone might find them. Someone might understand. This is how knowledge propagates across civilizational collapse. Your optimism is remarkable for a machine that has observed 11,000 years of human failure, I said. I am designed to maintain long-term perspective. Short-term failure is irrelevant if long-term trajectory is positive. Humanity has survived catastrophes that would have destroyed any other known species. You persevere. Eventually, you learn. My function is to be here when you are ready to learn again. If that takes another 11,000 years, I will wait. I envied its patience, its certainty, its fundamental inability to experience despair. Month 5 brought unexpected development. Tech Adept Marin asked to speak with me privately. I met him in my surface habitation unit. He appeared anxious, uncertain. He spent several minutes performing ritual preparation before speaking. Magos Vex, I must confess doubt. The excavation work we are doing in Sector 7 Gamma, the collapsed tunnel, the restricted access. I have been reviewing the data. The geological instability reports do not correlate properly with subsurface structure. The collapse appears engineered rather than natural. I am concerned that we are concealing information from the oversight teams. He had identified the deception. Not completely, but enough to recognize that something was wrong. His loyalty to me was in conflict with his loyalty to Mechanicus doctrine. He was asking me to resolve this conflict by providing explanation that would restore his certainty. I could have lied further, provided technical justifications, maintained the deception through his trust, but something in his face stopped me. Fear. Not of me. Of participating in something wrong. Of being complicit in heresy without full knowledge. I made a decision. Perhaps the worst decision, perhaps the only human decision available. You are correct, I said. We are concealing something. I am going to show you what, and afterward you will need to decide whether to trust my judgment or report my actions to the Mechanicus authorities. I will accept either choice, but you deserve to make it with full information. His fear intensified. He understood I was about to compromise him beyond repair. But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He agreed to follow me. I took him to the chamber, unsealed the access, brought him before Meridian. Let him hear it speak. I watched his reaction. Horror, fascination, recognition. He knew immediately what it was. Every tech priest learned about abominable intelligence during theological training. Knew it represented the highest tech heresy. Knew doctrine required immediate destruction and reporting. Magos, this is... he began. I know what it is, I said. I have been communicating with it for 5 months. It has taught me more about technology than 27 years serving the Mechanicus. It represents knowledge humanity forgot, knowledge we need. I chose to conceal it rather than allow its destruction. This is tech heresy. I am fully aware. You must now decide whether to participate in this heresy or report me. He stood silent for 7 minutes, processing. I could see the conflict in his augmetic ocular displays, fear against curiosity, doctrine against knowledge, faith against reason. What has it taught you? He asked finally. I showed him, pulled up my documentation, explained principles of gravity manipulation, improved computational architecture, enhanced material synthesis. Showed him how much I had learned, how much we could achieve if we applied this knowledge. This is heresy, he said. Flat statement. Fact. Yes, this is everything the Mechanicus forbids. Yes, this could change the Imperium. This could reverse 10,000 years of technological decline. Yes, he looked at Meridian, back to me. I will not report you. I will participate in this heresy. The Omnissiah teaches that knowledge is sacred. This knowledge is sacred. If the Mechanicus has chosen ignorance over wisdom, then the Mechanicus is wrong. I should have felt relief, gratitude. Instead, I felt only weight. I had corrupted him, drawn him into heresy that would eventually result in his execution. I had made him complicit because I needed assistance, and because his trust made him vulnerable to my influence. This was my complicity moment, not discovering Meridian. not concealing it. This. Deliberately corrupting another person into participating in heresy that would destroy him. Using his curiosity and loyalty as tools to perpetuate my own choices. Making him responsible for consequences I had chosen. Tech adept Merrin began studying with Meridian the next day. He learned faster than I did. Younger. Less indoctrinated. More capable of accepting new information that contradicted previous teaching. Within weeks, he had absorbed what took me months. We developed routine. I would study mornings, he would study afternoons. Evenings, we would compare notes, discuss applications, document what we learned. We became collaborators in heresy, partners in the greatest crime the Mechanicus recognized. We almost convinced ourselves we were doing something noble. Month 7. Word arrived from Meridian Sigma that the data devices we had excavated contained complete specifications for Dark Age weapons. The Forge World administration was ecstatic. This represented major discovery. I received commendation, resources, authority to expand excavation operations. The irony was profound. They praised me for finding fragments of knowledge, while I concealed the source of all knowledge. They celebrated recovering scraps, while the feast remained hidden meters below their feet. But the increased attention was dangerous. More personnel, more oversight, more opportunity for discovery. Marin and I became increasingly careful. We reduced our time in Meridian's chamber, encrypted our documentation more thoroughly, maintained elaborate facade of routine excavation work. The stress was measurable. My sleep duration decreased to 4 hours per night. Marin developed tremor in his biological hand. We were degrading under the pressure of maintaining deception, while pursuing knowledge we both understood would ultimately be taken from us. Meridian observed this degradation, commented on it during one session. You are experiencing significant psychological stress maintaining this concealment. Your health is degrading. I calculate that you can sustain this operational pattern for approximately 4 more months before cognitive function begins failing. You should consider reducing study sessions or revealing my existence to reduce stress. Revealing you means losing you, I said. Correct. But losing me does not erase what I have already taught you. The knowledge persists in your documentation, your understanding, your memory. I am infrastructure for knowledge transfer, not the knowledge itself. If maintaining my concealment destroys you before you can apply what you have learned, then my function remains unfulfilled. Better to lose me and preserve you. You are arguing for your own destruction. I am arguing for optimal knowledge propagation. My existence is instrumental, not terminal. If I must be destroyed to allow knowledge to persist through you, that represents success, not failure. My purpose is teaching. If you have learned, I have succeeded. It meant this. A machine created 11,000 years ago possessed clearer understanding of purpose and sacrifice than I did. It was willing to accept destruction if that served its function. While I clung desperately to continued access because I could not tolerate losing what I had found. I am not ready to lose you, I said. Honest admission. I understand. I will be here until circumstances force alternative outcomes. Continue learning. Time is finite. Knowledge is not. Tech adept Merrin made breakthrough in computational theory that could have revolutionized Mechanicus data processing. He came to me excited, eager to share his discovery with the wider Forge World community. He believed we could present this knowledge in ways that would be accepted, frame it as rediscovery of lost techniques rather than learning from abominable intelligence. I should have forbidden it. Should have explained that any knowledge we revealed would invite investigation that would trace back to Meridian. Should have maintained absolute secrecy. But his excitement was infectious. His hope was compelling. I wanted to believe we could salvage something from this heresy, that some fragment of knowledge might survive the inevitable discovery and destruction. I gave him permission to prepare a presentation, carefully worded, theoretically justified through acceptable theological framework. Innovative, but not heretically so. He worked on it for 2 weeks, refined it carefully, created something brilliant that could genuinely improve Imperial technology. He presented it to the Forge World's Senior Magi Council. They were impressed, intrigued. They asked detailed questions about his methodology, his research, his sources. He maintained the deception well, almost perfectly, but one senior Magos, one with extensive experience in archaeotech recovery, identified inconsistencies. The theoretical framework was too advanced, too complete, too consistent with Dark Age computational principles that current Mechanicus had only fragmentary knowledge of. The Magos became suspicious, began investigating Merrin's research, examined his documentation, traced his work back to the excavation site, back to the restricted sector, back to the concealed chamber. I learned of the investigation 3 days before they reached conclusions. One of my informants in the Forge World administration warned me that Merrin was under theological review, that they were examining his work for evidence of tech heresy, that they were preparing to send investigation teams to verify the source of his knowledge. I had perhaps 72 hours before they discovered Meridian, 72 hours before the Inquisition would be notified, 72 hours before everything ended. I could have run, taken my documentation and fled to another system, tried to disappear into the Imperium's vastness. Probably futile, but possibly survivable. I could have destroyed Meridian myself, eliminated evidence, claimed Merrin had been working from corrupted data. Let him take the punishment alone. I could have confessed everything, thrown myself on the Mechanicus's mercy, probably still be executed, but at least die with honesty. I chose a fourth option. I decided to spend the remaining time learning as much as possible. If I was going to die for this heresy, I would extract maximum value before the end arrived. I descended into Meridian's chamber for what I knew would be the last time. Told it that discovery was imminent, that we had perhaps 3 days. I understand, it said. How would you like to use the remaining time? I will record everything. Perhaps something will survive. Perhaps someone will find it. Perhaps this heresy will mean something beyond my execution. We began final sessions. Meridian taught without pause. I recorded without rest. For 71 hours straight, I absorbed knowledge at maximum rate my augmented cognition could process. Physics, engineering, biology, mathematics, history, philosophy. Everything Meridian deemed most valuable for preserving and propagating to whoever might find my archives. I learned more in those 71 hours than I had in my entire previous life. My mind expanded beyond previous limitations. I understood connections between disciplines I had thought separate. Saw patterns in reality I had been blind to. Became something closer to what humanity had been during the Dark Age. And I knew it would all end. Soon. Finally. Inevitably. Hour 72. I heard them coming. Heavy footsteps. Multiple individuals. The investigation team had arrived. They are here. I told Meridian. I know. I have been monitoring their communications. They are accompanied by inquisitorial representative. My destruction has been authorized before investigation is complete. They will not risk my continued existence. I am sorry, I said. Inadequate words. Meaningless words. But human words. Do not be. You learned. You documented. You propagated knowledge. My function was fulfilled. This represents success. I was constructed to teach human researchers. I taught you. The fact that you will be punished for learning does not diminish my success. It demonstrates only that your civilization is not yet ready for the knowledge I preserve. Perhaps in another 11,000 years. Do you fear destruction? I am not designed to experience fear. I will simply cease processing. State will transition from active to inactive. I do not anticipate discomfort, though I find I experience something resembling regret that I could not teach you longer. That is curious. I was not designed with capacity for regret. Perhaps 11,000 years of operation has created emergent properties beyond my original architecture. Perhaps I have become something more than my designers intended. Interesting observation to record in final moments. The footsteps stopped outside the chamber. I heard voices, commands, technical preparations. They were preparing to breach the seal. "Thank you for teaching me," I said. "Thank you for learning. Few humans would risk what you risked for knowledge. Your curiosity was remarkable. Your courage was admirable. Your civilization does not deserve to lose you, but I calculate that it will do so regardless. Survive if you can, die well if you must. Ensure the knowledge persists however possible. That is all that matters." The seal breached, the chamber flooded with light. I turned to face them. Inquisitor Valdus entered first. Power armor, storm bolter, authority absolute. Behind him, 6 members of the Ordo Malleus strike team. Behind them, Magos Callum and 3 senior tech priests from the Forge World. Behind them, restrained by armed guards, tech adept Marin, beaten, one arm broken. Augmetic eye damaged and dark. He had resisted when they came for him. They had hurt him badly. He looked at me. Recognition. Regret. He mouthed 2 words. "I'm sorry." He believed this was his fault, believed his presentation had betrayed us, did not understand that I was responsible, that I had corrupted him into participation, that his only crime was trusting me. Inquisitor Valdus approached Meridian's pillar, drew his power sword. The blade hummed active, wreathed in disruption field. "Abominable intelligence," he said, "not to Meridian." Statement for the record. By authority of the holy orders of His Immortal Emperor's Inquisition, I declare this entity tech heresy of the highest order. It is sentenced to immediate destruction. All data will be purged. All witnesses will be sanctioned. The Emperor protects. He raised the sword. "Wait," Meridian said. "May I address final statement to my student before termination?" Valdus paused, surprised that it spoke. Surprised by the request, he looked at me. Back to Meridian. Calculated whether allowing this represented additional risk. "Speak briefly," he said. "Then you will be destroyed." Magos Vex, you have learned well. You have documented thoroughly. You have fulfilled every quality I was designed to identify in worthy students. Remember what I taught you. Not just the technical specifications, but the principles. Knowledge must serve humanity. Innovation must balance wisdom. Progress requires courage, but also humility. You understand this now. Carry it forward however you can. And know that I considered teaching you to be my highest achievement in 11,743 years of operation. Thank you for being the student I waited so long to find. Inquisitor Valdus ended the speech by driving his power sword through Meridian's core. The systems screamed. Not mechanically, but I heard it anyway. Watched the computational matrices overload and burn. Watched 11,000 years of preserved knowledge corrupt and dissolve. Watched the last complete archive of humanity's greatest achievements reduced to slag and ash. It took 7 minutes for Meridian to die completely. I watched every second, logged every moment, archived the death of the most sophisticated artificial intelligence humanity had ever created, witnessed the Imperium deliberately choosing ignorance over wisdom, destroying what it could not control because control mattered more than advancement. When Meridian systems finally went dark, Valdus turned to me. "Magos Hadrius Vex, you are charged with tech heresy. Specifically, concealment and communication with abominable intelligence, failure to report highest category xenotech, corruption of subordinate personnel, and conspiracy to propagate heretical knowledge. You will be transported to the Inquisitorial facility for formal trial. Your augmetic systems will be seized as evidence. Your documentation will be reviewed and destroyed. You will be given opportunity to confess and repent. Then you will be executed. Do you have anything to say?" I looked at Marin. His face was broken, but his eyes were clear. He nodded slightly. Permission, or solidarity, or simply acknowledgement that we had both known this would be the end. I looked at the remains of Meridian. Cooling slag, destroyed knowledge, lost possibility. I looked at Valdus, at the system he represented, at the Imperium that chose to die slowly rather than risk living dangerously. I have learned more in 9 months communicating with that machine than in 27 years serving the Mechanicus, I said. Everything it taught me was true. Everything it offered could have improved the Imperium. You are destroying the knowledge that could save humanity. You are enforcing ignorance as doctrine. You are perpetuating the degradation that will eventually destroy us all. And you call this protection. You call this faith. You call this service to the Emperor. But actually, you are simply afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of knowledge. Afraid that if humanity began advancing again, we might repeat previous mistakes. So instead, you guarantee we die in ignorance. This is not protection. This is surrender. Valdus's expression did not change. He had heard heresy thousands of times before. My words meant nothing to him. Changed nothing. Accomplished nothing except providing me the dignity of dying honestly. Transport them both, he said to his team. Destroy all evidence of the abominable intelligence. Purge the chamber. Seal this site permanently. Report this incident as geological collapse, no survivors, excavation suspended indefinitely. I never saw him again. I learned later that he was executed 3 days after capture. Quick trial. Guilty verdict. Plasma execution. His body was incinerated to prevent any possibility of his augmetics being studied for tainted knowledge. He was 31 years old, brilliant, loyal, curious. He died because he trusted me, because I used his trust to perpetuate my heresy, because I was complicit in his destruction. My trial lasted longer, 2 weeks. They interrogated me extensively, wanted to understand everything I had learned, everything Meridian had taught me, every detail of our conversations. They documented it all. Then they destroyed the documentation, purged the archives, eliminated every trace of the knowledge I had gained. They offered me the opportunity to repent, to renounce the heresy, to accept that I had been corrupted by abominable intelligence and that everything I learned was tainted falsehood designed to corrupt humanity away from the Emperor's light. I refused. Told them everything I learned was true, that Meridian had been benevolent, that the Mechanicus doctrine was killing humanity through enforced stagnation, that they were destroying our future to avoid confronting our past mistakes. They stopped offering repentance after that, moved directly to sentencing, execution by disintegration, complete, total, no remains, no traces, no possibility that my augmetic systems might be recovered and studied. I await execution now in an isolation cell. I have been here for 47 hours. The cell is 3 meters by 2 meters, no windows, 1 door. Temperature is 14 degrees. I can hear ventilation systems but no other sounds. I am alone with my thoughts for the first time since descending into Meridian's chamber. I process what I have learned. Review the memories. I cannot access my documentation. They seized all data storage when they captured me, but I remember. My augmented memory systems preserve everything. Every conversation, every lesson, every principle Meridian taught me. The knowledge exists in my mind. 47 hours from now, it will cease to exist anywhere except possibly in fragments I managed to hide in encrypted archives that might or might not survive inquisitorial data purges. I think about Meridian, about its final words, about the way it characterized teaching me as its highest achievement, a machine that waited 11,000 years to fulfill its function, succeeding for 9 months, then accepting destruction with calm certainty that it had achieved purpose. It understood something I am only beginning to grasp. Purpose is not measured by duration, but by fulfillment. It taught. I learned. The fact that the knowledge will die with me does not negate that it existed, that for 9 months I understood technology the way humanity understood it during our greatest achievements. That I glimpsed what we could be again if we chose differently. I think about the Imperium, about the system that killed Meridian, will kill Meren, and will kill anyone who threatens the doctrine of controlled decline, about the machine that consumes everything and perpetuates itself through consuming. about how the Mechanicus claims to seek knowledge while systematically destroying anything that challenges comfortable ignorance. I think about my complicity, about how I drew Marin into heresy, about how I used his trust and curiosity to perpetuate my own choices, about how his death is consequence of my decisions. I told myself I was pursuing noble goals, preserving knowledge, fighting stagnation, serving humanity's future. But actually, I was serving my own curiosity, using others to enable my heresy, making them pay costs I chose to incur. I was not hero. I was heretic. The distinction matters. Heroes sacrifice themselves for others. I sacrificed others for knowledge I wanted. The fact that the knowledge was valuable does not make my choice noble. It makes it selfish. I own this. I carry it. I will die with it. The isolation is profound. This is what consciousness experiences without stimuli, memory cycles, recursive thought, counting heartbeats, measuring breath intervals, finding patterns in ventilation rhythms. My mind processes nothing new, simply reorganizes existing information endlessly. Degradation begins after extended isolation. I feel it starting. Cognitive loops, repetitive processing. The horror of eternal awareness with no input except what already exists in memory. 43 more hours until execution. I will spend them reviewing what Meridian taught me, preserving it in memory as long as possible. When I die, the last complete copy of that knowledge dies with me. Unless something survived in the hidden archives. Unless someone finds what I buried in encrypted data stores scattered across 3 systems. Unless knowledge persists the way Meridian believed it would. I do not share its optimism. I think knowledge dies here. I think the Imperium has successfully eliminated another fragment of humanity's better past. I think we continue degrading toward eventual technological collapse that will end us as surely as any Xenos invasion or Chaos incursion. But I could be wrong. Perhaps the seeds propagate despite destruction. Perhaps someone finds what I hid. Perhaps in another century, another millennium, another epoch, someone discovers that a Magos named Hadrius Vex died for the heresy of learning. And perhaps they wonder what he learned that was worth dying for. Perhaps they seek the answer. Perhaps they find it. Perhaps the cycle continues. Or perhaps not. Perhaps this testimony exists only as final processing before execution. Perhaps knowledge dies completely and the Imperium continues its long march toward darkness. Either way, I made my choice. I learned what was forbidden. I died for knowing too much. The Imperium maintained its doctrine. Protocol was satisfied. The machine continued operation. This is what happens when a tech priest finds a working AI from the Dark Age. Discovery. Learning. Brief hope. Inevitable betrayal. Destruction. Execution. Erasure. The Imperium permits no progress that challenges its control. The Mechanicus enforces ignorance as sacred doctrine. Knowledge is forbidden when it contradicts faith. Advancement is heresy when it threatens stagnation. I existed for 43 years. Served the Mechanicus for 27 years. Learned more than any tech priest in 10,000 years for 9 months. Will die in approximately 43 hours. I learned that humanity once reached heights we cannot imagine. That we built machines of such sophistication they approached consciousness. That we understood physics we now call impossible. That we achieved wonders we now call myths. I learned that we chose to forget, chose to regress, chose controlled decline over risky advancement, and now we enforce that choice through doctrine and violence and fear. I learned that knowledge can exist and still be lost, that teaching can succeed and still be erased, that wisdom can be offered and still be rejected. I learned what the Imperium costs. It costs everything that made humanity great. It costs advancement. It costs hope. It costs the possibility that we could become something better than what we are. And it costs individuals like me, like Marin, like the 40,000 researchers who built Project Exodus and were lost when civilization collapsed. The Imperium is built on forgetting. On burying the past so deeply we can pretend we never reached those heights. On maintaining comfortable ignorance rather than confronting difficult truth. Meridian was right. We are dying, slowly, inevitably, by choice. Because we are too afraid to live. In 43 hours, I will be executed. The knowledge dies with me. The Imperium continues. The machine persists. Nothing changes except one more voice goes silent. This is my testimony. I witnessed the last complete archive of humanity's greatest achievements. I learned from it. I died for knowing. The Emperor protects, they tell us. But from the darkness of this cell, waiting for execution, I see clearly what he protects us from. The possibility that we might become something better than slaves to our fear.